In this video, I want to discuss the perfect diet and why there is no such thing as one. So, on my food journey, on my relationship with food from an early age up into where I stand today, I've personally tried many different diets. And I don't even like using the word diets. We'll switch that to nutritional plans. I've tried paleo, I've tried vegan, vegetarianism. I've been raw food, believe it or not, for a complete month. I've also done keto. You name it, I've probably tried it. And I know that there is a tremendous amount of confusion, a tremendous amount of information out there. You know, this diet is better than this one. Eat this way, eat that way. You know, it's unethical to do whatever. And one of the things I want to discuss in this video is the reason why there is no such thing as a perfect diet for each of the billions of us humans here on this planet Earth. Where should I start? I'll use myself as an example. Whenever I first started to become aware of the relationship between food and the body, this was my sophomore year in college. I received a gift, a LL Cool J book. And this was back in like 2006. He had came out with this book that not only talked about exercise, but it also, it had nutritional advice and meal plans and all these different aspects in there. And, at that particular time, LL, he was ripped, he was shredded, he was, rap icon. He had always kind of been in shape, but his body had went through like this huge transformation where he was just shredded. So myself, and I know a lot of other people out there were like, man, LL, I want a body like that. So read his book, and it was an illuminating experience for me because I had never really, knew about eating certain, the macronutrients, a certain quality of food and meal timing and calories in versus calories out and portion size, all these different aspects I had no awareness of. So reading that book and starting different meal plans, starting to eat brown rice and starting to eat lean chicken breast and fat-free yogurt and actually doing meal preps. This was the first time I ever did that, where I would just on Sundays, I would prep my meals for the entire week and end up putting them in the freezer and was consistently eating the same things throughout the week. Well, during that time, I definitely noticed a difference in my energy levels. I noticed I was able to sleep better. I had more energy for my workouts, and my body composition was changing during this. I was losing more fat. I was gaining more muscle. But even at that particular point in time, I still felt off. And I didn't realize that I felt off back then, but now being in the position I am today, I know that, while I was feeling good, I still felt off. And by off, what I mean by that is I was still eating at that point in time grains, like wheat toast and certain foods that I've realized now don't necessarily agree with my body. So I went through this program of eating the foods, and really ultimately I was upping the nutritional quality of the foods what I was eating. So it wasn't, stopped eating fast food for a period of time and was making a lot of meals at home, which by and large is going to be healthier for the most part than eating out at these fast food restaurants. So I did that consistently, did notice some changes, but then I also, I finished college and started my working career, I actually read a book called Wheat Belly. And Wheat Belly illuminated another experience for me. It talked about gluten and how the wheat here in the US is different than the wheat that our grandparents grew up on. It's modified. It's shorter cropped. It's not the best for us in a sense of a lot of people have sensitivities or allergens to it and aren't able to effectively digest it the way that we could, 50, 60 years ago before it was, before the actual crop itself was changed and the grains were shortened. So I read this book and I was like, oh my God, I've been eating oatmeal every single morning since I was, probably in like middle school, since I was probably like 10 or 11 years old, always eating oatmeal. And I loved it, putting the butter in there and the oatmeal and the brown sugar or the cinnamon, etc. And was also heavy into eating bread and sandwiches and certain foods that all had wheat in them. So I went on a detox from wheat. And at first I committed to 90 days. I'm gonna do 90 days of no wheat, period. And I went through that particular point in time and realized like, oh my God, that opened up another light bulb for me. Inflammation went down. My skin, I wasn't as puffy as I was used to seeing. I mean, at that point I was working out 5-6 days a week, whether it be running or going to the gym and lifting, but I still had kind of like this puffiness. And when I went on that eliminating wheat and went on a variation of more of a paleo way of eating, which just means, your nuts, your proteins or, animal proteins, whether it's fish, salmon, chicken. Also you're eating natural foods. If you're eating sweet potatoes, if you're eating white potatoes, you're eating everything that is closest to how we as an ancient civilization, what we grew up on and what we ate as a human species. So that ended up turning into actually doing it very consistently for over 2 years, and I kind of became an evangelist of everyone should be eating paleo. Paleo is the way to eat. Paleo, like all these people could lose weight. And, I kind of became that annoying person that whether it was talking to friends or whether it's communicating to my family, like just do paleo. I'm telling you, paleo will answer all of your questions and you'll lose weight and you'll have energy and all these different things. And from my limited experience at the time, because through my own lens of, how it affected me, I was speaking from my own experience and trying to pass that knowledge or that kind of that whole shift in reality onto other people. So I continued to do paleo and felt good, but for whatever reason, I started having more skin rashes on my skin. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? Digestion wasn't really on point as it used to be. And I started to notice that my body was not processing meats like it used to. I wasn't having the best bowel movements. Sometimes they were painful. Sometimes, my stomach just felt really off. And I started looking into vegetarianism and was like, man, my body is not really digesting these foods the way that it used to. At that point, I had already tried, I had already eliminated wheat and I had kind of transitioned to paleo. So I said, why not try something different? And there was also more of a spiritual connection with that as well. I really felt the energy within my body. I felt I was being called to switch to a different way of eating. And as I became a vegetarian, which I was one, a strict vegetarian as well, for 9 months. And as I became a vegetarian, it was amazing because I had so much more energy. I was living primarily or really 100% off of plants. At that point, I was still eating eggs and no, I was not eating fish, but I was eating the eggs and, my whole entire way of being had shifted. I had lost all this weight, I just felt lighter. At that point, I was running. I was an avid runner. And I had much more energy. I was recuperating so much more quickly. I wasn't as sore after runs and after workouts, and felt really good about it for 9 months. Again, digestion issues came into play, and my digestion was just off. I remember going to the doctor, and the doctor said, we're going to have an endoscopy. And at that point I was like 27. This is like probably about 5-6 years ago. I was like 27, 28 years old. And I'm like, man, I don't want to do this. I don't want to stick a tube down my stomach or down my mouth into my stomach. This isn't normal for someone my age. So I went back into research mode. It's like, how can I figure this out? Reading books, watching documentaries, just really trying to figure out what was going on with my body. Then I decided to transition and try vegan. So not vegan as in, hardcore, not buying any leather or anything like that, but more on the actual, the food, the actual nutritional vegan. And instantly just eliminating the eggs and eliminating the cheese, I noticed that my digestion improved. I said, this is amazing. This is great. Like, my digestion is on point. I am, again, feeling much lighter. I felt good. I really did feel good. Friends and family were a bit concerned about me just because I had lost so much weight. Like, I literally couldn't hold on to any muscle at all. And I was living off of protein shakes, but also, the fruits and vegetables and rice and black beans and all these different things. And my body had become adjusted to it, to eating these lighter forms of food. And that was going well for me as well until I started losing my hair. Literally just started losing hair. And I noticed, as much as I was eating protein and taking fish oil and doing all these different aspects on a nutritional level to make sure I got enough protein in, my energy was not on point. I was always hungry, because on a vegetarian or vegan way of eating, you're going to be consuming more and more carbs, more and more rice. And, at that point, like, I was eating gluten-free bread, but I was always like wanting to eat something, because my blood sugar was not steady. It was going up. I was eating carbs or eating breads, and then it would drop down. I want to eat again. And it turned into a cycle. So not only that cycle was happening for me, but at the same time, I was losing weight. My muscle mass was going down. I was also losing my hair, and my energy was just not on point. So I went to a naturopath, a holistic naturopathic doctor. And it was interesting because she, had me do a meal plan and said, hey, Brandon, why is it that you're eating this way? And I said, because, it's clean. I came in, I kind of had this confidence, this bravado of, well, how is she going to help me? Because I know for a fact, all of my foods are organic. She's going to be super impressed by my meal plan. And she said, where's your meat at? And I said, no. Like, I don't eat meat. And it's interesting because I asked her how she ate. And she said, well, I'm a vegetarian as well, but I also eat fish and I incorporate different meats from time to time. And it was interesting because at that point I was so rigid and so stuck on one way of being. It's like I had created this attachment, like it was a part of my identity. To one point I'm paleo person, one point I'm 100% no wheat, eliminating all of that. One point I'm the vegetarian, next point I'm a vegan. And I had created this attachment to, well, this is a part of my identity. Like, this is supposed to be the answer. It's like I was reaching and searching and always in resistance to changing. I wanted something to be it. I wanted this to be the number one thing for me. And at that particular point, it was always nutrition, like trying different things out, seeing how my body responded. And it was interesting because I transitioned out of being a vegan and started to incorporate soup. And instantly when I incorporated like chicken noodle soup or chicken broth soup, my energy levels skyrocketed. You know, my hair started to grow back. I felt instantly like the body just responded so quickly to, yes, this is what you need. This is whatever the vitamins and nutrients and the minerals that you had been missing out on, that for you and how you individually operate, this is where you're at this point in time. So the biggest thing that taught me, all these experiences, is each and every one of us on an individual level is built differently. Yes, we all have, the same organs, etc. But some of us are from different parts of the world. Some of us grew up on different ways of eating. Some of our parents, what our parents ate, what our mothers ate, that transitions into us. Some of us grew up, whether it be in Northern Europe and grew up on primarily fish. Some of us grew up, our lineage is in Africa and we were hunters and gatherers. There's so many different intangibles that are involved when it comes to our relationship to food and how we nourish ourselves, that there is no one size fits all approach, period. So anybody out there who says, vegan is the way to be, or vegetarian is the way to be, or keto is the way to be, or there's this new craze going on with the carnivore diet where you just eat complete meat. All of it is BS. All of it. And it frustrates me because I know there's a lot of people out here who are moving through life and wanting to better take care of themselves. There's so much more awareness around it. But when you go to Google, or when you turn on your television, or whenever you're listening to a friend or a neighbor and they say, they can become very strict on, well, this is the way you need to do it, this is how I eat. It can kind of put you in this perpetual loop, this cycle of well, what is the answer? You can get so frustrated to the point where you don't even want to switch or try anything because there's so much confusion, there's so much noise that is out there. So in a sense of certain ways of eating are going to be the best for us depending on where we are and depending on where our body is on a state of homeostasis. So meaning if I have an autoimmune condition, and I don't, but let's say I have an autoimmune condition and someone's telling me to eat vegetarian, and I also I'm taking in tons of nuts, whether it's almonds, pecans, seeds, etc. And I not only have an autoimmune condition, but I am allergic or have sensitivities to nuts, then me eating all of these nuts is going to continue to make that condition worse. It's not going to really help. If someone says, hey, keto is the way to eat, you should go keto, and you do keto and you're eating primarily high fat foods, you're also adding in, your meats, and maybe you're eating a little bit too much meat and your stomach is not producing the amount of hydrochloric acid it needs in order to break down these meats, and you're not able to digest these foods, then there's another issue. If you have leaky gut, and you could be eating the most beautiful, organic, nutrient-dense meal plan there is, but if you have leaky gut, doesn't matter how much nutrient-dense food you're eating, your body is not going to fully absorb it, period. It can't, because the integrity of your stomach is going to be compromised. So I mention all this to say there is no quick fix to any of this. The only way in order to understand what's best for our bodies is to become more mindful and aware of our bodies. And the only way we can really do that is one, going on a complete I like to call it a food addition nutritional plan, where we add in more of the foods that agree with our bodies traditionally, and we crowd out those foods that don't, so that we can form a new baseline. And then once that baseline is formed, and we're taking different supplements and vitamins, minerals, the nutrients that our body needs, we're like flushing our system with all of these health building type of foods and supplements, and becoming more aware of how we feel. How much sleep am I getting? How are my bowel movements? How much energy do I have? How is my mood shifting whenever I eat this certain food? Am I noticing this gives me gas? And it's just building that awareness over time, because as we build that awareness, then we're able to mindfully understand our unique bodies and say, okay, when I eat this, I feel this way. So I know that I shouldn't eat this food as much, or maybe eliminate this food. And then the more that we are aware of our bodies, the more we can make conscious decisions based off of our own individual and unique body. And it's not a matter of, hey, so-and-so said this is the way to eat, or hey, so-and-so eats this way, and they look great, or they feel amazing, so I should eat that way too. The only universal way of eating that I personally feel is the best for everybody is, one, eating high quality, foods, and two, eating foods that are as close to nature as possible. I mean, that's how we as a human species, that's what we evolved on. Before there was fast food restaurants, before there was mega grocery stores, there was no such thing as processed foods. There was no such things as non-organic. There was no such thing as genetically modified ingredients. It was just food. Before any of this stuff, it was just food. And then with the epidemic of sugar, and in the early 1900s, sugar kind of came on the scene. We weren't even, as humans, we were only eating around, goodness, I'm losing the actual amount. But in the early 1900s, we weren't eating much sugar at all. And now sugar is added to everything. And sugar is extremely addictive, and it's hard to wean yourself off of it. It takes time, and you go through a detox mode. You go through withdrawals. It's almost like it is a drug. And if I'm coming off a little frustrated, it is because I've been there. I've gone through this experience of reading this book, reading that book, listening to this person, listening to that person, and trying all these different things out, and admittedly becoming almost this this kind of like guy on a pedestal. This is the way to do things. And ultimately, you don't really know what you don't know. And I'm fortunate now today in knowing that, again, there is no one size fits all approach, period. So to recap, there is no such thing as a perfect diet. And anybody out there who says this is 100% the way to eat all the time is lying, period. If we have certain gut dysfunctions, parasites, bacteria overgrowth, if we have autoimmune conditions, type 2 diabetes, if we have blood sugar sensitivities, meaning as soon as we take in any sugar, we get really tired, or we want to eat more and more and more of it, and our body stores it as fat, then there are certain ways that we can counterbalance that in order to make sure that we are at our best. But ultimately, the best way to do that is to, one, clean up the way that we're eating, and then two, form a baseline that can show us and make us more aware of how it is that we feel inside of our bodies. And the beautiful part about this, again, is the more that we become aware of how we feel, and a lot of us, again, are disconnected from our bodies, the more we become aware of how we feel and how certain foods react to us, the better decisions we can make on an individual level on what we're going to put in ourselves to help us thrive. So, in closing, there's tons of information out there. Choose mindfulness and choose yourself in order to gain the knowledge that you need to gain, but be open to the point that it takes time in order to become mindfully aware of how we feel and how we can take the next step. So, to the next video.